The emptiness of those little spaces connecting frame to time to find a two. The picture for the you could be whispering to you for the lonely message for the nearly there attached to this to be the frozen in prison inside of the memory for the pleasure of a smile for the fortunate enough for the lifetime to forget. That glass would never crack and like all frontiers for the fake cave for the inevitable enough for the tiny little raindrops of the soundless of a night. As it sang for the symphony for the tears of the pain to you. Fragmented for the release and the touches to asphalt. The layer for the wishful thinking evaporated from like it used to be. And catching in one hand for the side for the disbelief and how easy it could be to let go when you can know the end. The worried look of a stranger for the nearby. And have you ever tell you for their story for the unfinished for the diner for the maybe the late that's the spoiler for the table for the crying widows for the over the better for the innocence and near with their words to their harbor. And when the logic was yet a dream for the kissing of a word was mixed up for the counters of a liquor for the time for the infidelities and you can know him never not for not to know them for the maybe the how about ponder for the mind and not to be around. Maybe it was a sound that couldn't find that paradox for maybe the desire for the scared enough feeling for the lonely enough when you wanted to feel for the searching of a familiar face with the crowd when it was yours to be alone with. I sat there. Look at myself with the reflection of something. Maybe it was glass and this was you trying to find and searching what you be alone for the scream deepest and everything you needed for the will to be anxious of for the solitude for the melancholy or the silence. Or it was the words for another episode which you could find for the tragedy. It was only here for it was to be the trust. And trusted not to be disgusted with whether or not you could find the solitude for the conversation and what you could find for the need, the reason, the demand, the meaning, the demonstration, or the dimension. Something else to find for the viewpoint, for the viewfinder. It was now a kaleidoscope with the spider eyes, and I can weave that web with something, whether you bother with it, but the keeping just out of the never because it was really talking about that, it was suicide, but neither for that, for the bringing up of the taboo conversation, it was only that for the hope, so many emotions are constructive every time for the young age, and then maybe they left those holes in the walls of the tending that for the venerable you was left the truth and wide open up for the stutter. Trying to find those words to express the shock, a little voice in the spine of me screaming, and it was obvious the whole time. Everyone was just too damn blind enough to see it, but maybe I was defining rainbow, able to find the hiding of my face with the tears that are formed enough for the going to work and maybe the wearing the smile, the silently working and maybe the throughout the day for the looming at the thoughts and maybe the down that breaks. To give me every time for the floodgates opening inside, escaping to that bathroom and telling myself to breathe and never the trace of sadness and what I'm doing now for the counting of the seconds until that clock died. Long walks and maybe the wondering if I should take it to make it to the end for the standing in front of the blaring through the headlights and maybe the light flash before my eyes entire. Enough is the eyes word for the maybe to step into the road. Our car tires and swilling inside of my head for relief and it fills me until the small smile, grace and face amazes me out and something I can face and stop that for the tracks and maybe to think of something I can wait for me for the home. Think of destruction, maybe the knowing the selfish behavior I can stolen this and maybe it was a lover for the leaving and saying goodbye to me with a smile. The sharer and never to be alone. I can find myself and never be the drone for something I can never be alone and past that for the maybe the comfort for the tempted with the desires and maybe I can take a dive for the deep into your love for the whenever I sing you for the God up above and I can live with the present but never the mind be the past and knowing that I can lose and never the knowing. Will it be the last? I always love my angel and of course I want to be that for the back again for I love you still. It was something that never left. She was the moon lady for every breath that I could take. The care I never wanted to break. But how can I break a heart when mine's healing from the beginning for the womb? To stand tenth, she came to you with the clips to wipe away the tears that she wanted to say for the member to remember that he lips and maybe they cannot last forever, but needs that for the someone in the episode that you could find sweet enough to cherish. It was the Neptune of a storm for the dream that I cannot find a reason to understand for the maybe the dysphoria for maybe the one that I ain't untouched and maybe the belly for the dreams and maybe it's too much to fail for the home for the emptiness and the emptiness is preferable enough for the favorite song to be center of a beach. There's a reason for letting go for the obvious lifestyle, deliberately to sink it into the disarray for the black holes that you can find the maybe go for the sunlight, then dip into the bottle for the maybe the picture. And tonight I can find that for the translation, the storms and weather you can sand. Whether or not you can find the storms or weather. There's a beauty just like you for the thunder. And I wonder if I had to spell it to me. There'd be another goddess if I actually didn't want about it to tell you. It's something that should have been known enough for the maybe that I could find that for the unpaved yo covers and then made the cloud clustered enough for the whisper when you could find it believing in the heaven in our heads and not to be lying, babe. I tell the truth. Waking up. Waking up to the place where I could be a terrible state ruled by a narcissistic fool. Run by climate change and denial. Waking up to the place where I could be a terrible state ruled by a narcissistic fool. Run by climate change and deniers. For all times, for all states. Whether or not you can find that what's eating on your plate, but you can be eating enough and never full enough for the beautiful deprived from that appetite. It was a place where you can find what might be you can be, but only for the symbolization of what you can find for poetizer or appetizer. It would be similar to those who define for display. For the upper echelon, you can find that between we, you, and that one. And I can feel your silence now to embrace. Feel safe in the arms, brushing and crushing the grip, and I feel safe enough for doubts and red. Everything is blue, minus in blue for the puddles of cool, swirling into the old spills and hue. Vast oceans having blocks in my eyes and tumbling together. Some nice folks that came by, but you can find the need the batters when you eat the food like for everyone else. This may never be the same for the quite alright, for the maybe I'll just never hate you for the rest of my life, for the kind of glad for the only I can know for the what to be apart for the day when you still still. This morning by the corpse, in the darkness I rose with the mid-morning from flushed away for the salted rain. It dripped upon for the burning flesh and never for the second for the status of marking of me for the nostrils was tracked that for the only the chlorine. Lose ties, and I know when our current dream will end. But I'm not mad enough and I just wish I had the call for a few more glances for the we give each other. Maybe it was tired of the solemn for the maybe the total for the useless enough for the tired for the pretending we were never serious enough for sincere. So it began and started with that inability to control the smallest bit of emotion. There's no doubt that I love you and I ask myself. The beauty in the eyes that goes to the dead body for the living soul, and the use better for enough that cannot be touching the body, but it isn't much at all. Who's that for the wanting to foretell? Tell no moments of the story you can never be a part of in your dreams. It's when I told you, when I folded, when I fight to say you for the until that for the hits the lips to define the drunken for the concrete is just me. Perfectionism is lost the cause, but this is the best things in life, and having the most beautiful flaws in the love, so I give that moment for the relaxing pause. I hurt you but expect you to feel guilty, and I find a tightrope but don't feel like I can be myself around you anymore. And the kind of attack that you could be like a widow for the spider for the weaving your venomous web of lies, and soon you will find that addict for love and she's a fall victim to the addiction. Carefully sculpted into the head, but it really doesn't take much of a single tug on a worn out thread. The sequence of pretty words, trade enough of the childhood for maturity. Like crying in waves and let the waves cry for you for the salt for the care to fill your wounds. Where you can find out to see the fountain for the find out an imagination for the trouble of the wings. I live in a life, but yet the mind is dark enough for the boiling of words in the gray. And she knew.
my thoughts turn bitter and angry. Send the cavalry to my balcony and free me.
And I can feel your silence now to embrace. Feel safe.
And I can feel your silence now to embrace.
And I can feel your silence now to embrace. Feel safe in the arms, rushing the crushing the grip, and I feel safe enough for that was red. Everything is blue, minus in the blue for the puddles of cool, swirling into the old spills and huge. Vast oceans having blocks in my eyes and tumbling together. Some nice folks that came by, but you can find the need the batters when you eat the food like for everyone else. This may never be the same for the quite alright, for the maybe I'll just never hate you for the rest of my life, for the kind of glad for the only I can know for the what's to be apart for the day when you stood still. This morning by the corpse, in the darkness I arose for the mid-morning from the flushed away for the salted rain. It dripped upon for the burning flesh and never for the second for the status of marking in me for the nostrils is track that for the honor the chlorine. Lose ties. And I know when our current dream will end, but I'm not mad enough and I just wish I had for the call forward. A few more glances would we give each other. Maybe it was tired of the solid for the, maybe the total for the useless enough for the tired for the pretending we were never serious enough for the sincere. So it began and started with that inability to control the smallest bit of emotion. There's no doubt that I love you and I ask myself, the beauty in the eyes that goes for the dead body for the living soul, for the use better for enough it cannot be touching the body, but there isn't much at all. Who's that for the wanting to foretell? Tell no moments of the story you can never be a part of in your dreams. It's when I told you, when I folded, when I fight to say you for the until that for the hits the lips of the thigh, the drunken for the concrete is just me. Perfectionism is lost the cause, but this is the best things in life, and having the most beautiful flaws in the love, so I give that moment for the relaxing pause. I hurt you, but expect you to feel guilty when I find a tightrope and don't feel like I can be myself around you anymore. And kind of attack you could be like a widow for the spider for the weaving your venomous web for the lies, and soon you will find that addict for love and she's a fall victim to the addiction. Carefully sculpted into the head, but it really doesn't take much of a single tug on the worn out thread. A sequence of pretty words, tread enough for the childhood for maturity. Like crying in waves and let the waves cry for you for the salt for the care to fill your wounds. Where you can find out to see the fountain for the find out and imagination for the trouble of the wings. I live in a life, and yet the mind is dark enough for the boiling of words in the gray. And she knew.
Will you knock me down until I'm begging on my knees? And oh, beautiful, will you push me until I'm soaring with the stars, until I'm flying with the birds? Let me know I have what it takes, and push me to the point have a dream we'll let me know I have what it takes. Push me to the point my heart breaks and aches. Remind me what I'm doing this for. Let me go on and fight for more and more. Will you knock me down until I'm begging on my knees? And oh, beautiful, will you push me until I'm soaring with the stars, until I'm flying with the birds? Let me know I have what it takes. Push me to the point my heart breaks and aches. Remind me what
And I can feel your silence now to embrace. Feel safe in the arms, rushing to crushing the grip, and I feel.
Let me go on and fight for more and more. And when I drift away, when I lose my way, my body starts to decay. My body starts to decay.
You can write it down yourself, but do not need to like it or follow for the opening of the door for the leading into the empty and grief with the steps right after that you can set you free. Realizing what you find yourself distant from because you know for the tricks that don't work on me anymore. But you can find a solace in the grief for the discipline so destined to leave for the work. You can find a thief for the knife for the damn for the life for the dying like hunting deaths or rings of a chime. But this will be the waves crashing into
Let me know
finally to see how you feel. These are the deepest desires that ignite that for the well-known fire in the trench with me for your sight. Sometimes I can find that trap if one can lead to another if you don't liberate your mind. And I can find from not to know the time folded. Fight for what to say for the owner that maybe they hit the lips and drunken legs are concrete enough, but is it just me? Perfectionism, but maybe they lost cause for how best the things in life are the beautiful flaws, and I've never given a moment to realize and give a pause. You convert that self from the narcissism to hurt you, but this maybe expect you to feel guilty enough that maybe they hate. Not to feel myself again, but myself around you. For the more I can find a counter attack for maybe they will be something other addict for the love that she's a fall and victim to. Carefully sculpted inside of the head, but it really doesn't take much of a single tug of the one out thread, enough in the sequence of a pretty word. I traded that. Better that for the waves that cry for you, but it's all to carry you through your wounds. When you heal, you can see them by the time they constantly like you. And sometimes imagine for the maybe the wind, for the rough of the winds, and maybe you can fly again. And I live in life, and maybe the mind is dark for the dwelling of the words of the grave. The gray matter for divine, the incantation, maybe the what why, the black for the cave, for the bread, for the shelf, maybe the dark wave. And you can find for the dream was just at home that we met. The home is where you were and behave. And I can find the capital, but maybe the place you raised and found along the river for the canal banks. But down to the golden streets, and maybe the golden line, and find an inner voice for the speaking never so quietly preparing me for what that unknown, for devoting my capabilities for the convenient desire to future, but never this. You can find after what was called for the act of surprise and maybe the delete after the evidence in which we find the evidence there, for the story after for me, I'm the tell for the story that I sold me. The heart collapsed and don't fail away from far away, for I felt it for the unknown, and I was worried about it, but I had no clue. I wanted to be real until I realized I was not being only an asshole, but this is somebody who knows or someone for the punching, but you can find the living your blessing, but we can find the aspiration.
find the must and not to find that. For the little, for the apt, for the septic, for the practice, and the writing that, for the typographic over maybe the real graph. Death and left confined, separations and nothing harmonies. For the variation that you can find infinite, maybe to find the patience and able to hear those voices, but not yours and I ain't never experienced. Essence of the life and the owner, the hustle, to strive that for the world, for the bustle, for the never, to pray, for the manipulator, for the escape, for the submissive, for the moderator, for the divine living, for the ability of to be here. After that, what was the cause for every age? And you can invoke the enrichment of such a beautiful stage. And I always admire the compassion, never let one down. For the loyalty, for the honor, for the family with the crown. For she's the only one to make us feel so proud enough. For the unconditional love of you to be immensely devoted. Where is faith, one gentle touch of the poem. Never worse an attribute for the meaning for the word. And I can find that for the word. Life is not to let me down. Everything is rising. Find that for the meaning of the work. For the let go, for the rushing up the cliff and take those. Nothing about it, I can something to shout about. Not to lift my voice with the pebble for the floating down the streets and the cascades of time. Time after time. Remember that song for what it was like for the daily lives and watching one boy for the struggle, for the strife, and the finding for life and maybe to lose again. Often and often pours, and maybe the rain can see when it can rain. So maybe to live in this world for the taking of the stride for the days and being kind enough for the long to live, so you will find it for the part of this life. To be the part of your life. The inspiration, always something to write about. For the thinking of you with the inspiration, you can find that for the sake of time. Who am I? Not to be hiding. I'm here. This is the words of intrusive thoughts. You don't have to pursue. You can write it down yourself and do not need to like it or follow for the opening of the door, for the leading into the empty and Greek with instead right that for that you can set you free. Realizing what you find yourself distant from because you know for the truths that don't work only in you. But you can find a solace in the grief and the discipline so destined to leave for the work. You can find a thief in the night for the dim of the light for the dying light. Hundred deaths of rings of a chime, but this will be the waves crashing and finally you see how you feel when you using the deepest desires to ignite that for the well-known fire for the trends with me for your sight. Sometimes I can find that trap one can lead to another if you don't liberate your mind, and I can find for the not and know the time to hold it. Fight for what to say for them.
Emptiness of those little spaces connecting frame to time to find a to the picture for the you to be whispering to you for the lonely message for the nearly there attached to this to be the frozen in prison inside of the memory for the pleasant of a smile for the fortunate enough of the lifetime to forget that glass would never crack and like all frontiers for the fake cave for the inevitable enough for the tiny little raindrops in the soundless of the night as it sang for the symphony for the tears of the pain to you fragmented for the release and the touch still asked for the layer for the wishful thinking evaporated when like it used to be and catching in one hand for the side for the disbelief and how easy it could be to let go but you can know the end. The worried look of a stranger for the nearby. Have you ever tell you for their story, for the unfinished, for the diner, for the maybe the late that's for the spoiler, for the table, for the crying widows, for the over the better, for the innocents, and for the what's your harbor. And when the logic was yet a dream, for the kissing of a word was mixed up, for the counters of a liquor, for the time, for the infidelities that you can know him, then really not, for not to know them, for maybe to have a ponder for the mind and not to be around. Maybe it was a sound that couldn't find that paradox, for maybe the desire, for the scared enough feeling, for the lonely enough when you wanted to feel, for the searching of your face, for the cry, for when it was yours to be alone with. I sat there, look at myself in the reflection of something. Maybe it was glass and this was starting to find the searching what should be alone, for the scream tables and everything you needed with it, to be anxious of, for the solitude, for the melancholy, or the silence. Or it was the words for another episode that you could find for the tragedy. It was only here for it was to be the trusted not to be discussed with whether or not you could find the solitude for the conversation and what you could find for the meaning, the reason, the demand, the meaning, demonstration, or the dimension, something else to find for the viewpoint, for the viewfinder. It was not a kaleidoscope for the spider eyes, and I could weave that web with something, whether you bother with it, but to keeping your silence inevitable, because it was really talking about that. It was suicide, but neither for that, for the bringing up of the tattoo conversation. It was only that for the hopes of the emotions that constructive every time for the young age, and then maybe they left those holes in the walls and attending that for the video you would left the truth are wide open up for the stutter. Trying to find those words to express the shock. A little voice in his finding me screaming, and it was obvious the whole time. Everyone was just too damn blind enough to see it, but maybe I was defined, and maybe they wouldn't find the hiding of my face with the tears that are formed enough for the going to work, and maybe they're wearing a smile, and silently working, and maybe they throughout the day for the looming at the thoughts, and maybe the damn it breaks to get me every time for the floodgates opening inside, escaping to that bathroom, but telling myself to breathe and never to trace the sadness. And what I'm doing after the counting of the seconds until I clocked out. Long walks, and maybe the wondering if I should take it to make it to the end for the standing in front of the glaring through the headlights, and maybe the light flashed before my eyes entire. Enough as the eyes were for the maybe to step into the road. Our car tires are swilling inside of my head for relief, and it fills me until the small smile, grace and face, amazing me out and something I can face and stop that for the tracks, and maybe to think of something I can wait for me for the home. Think of destruction, maybe the knowing the selfish behavior like a stolen nurse, and maybe it was a lover for the leaving and saying goodbye to me with a smile. With terror and never to be alone. I can find myself and never be the drone for something I can never be your own. And past that for the maybe the comb for the tempted with the desires, and maybe I can take a dive for the deep into your love. But then whenever I see you for the God up above, and I can live with the present, but never the mind be the past, and knowing that I can lose and never the knowing. Will it be the last? I always love my angel, and of course I want to be that for the back again, for I love you still. It was something that never left. She was the moon lady for every breath that I can take. The care I never wanted to break. But how can I break her heart when mine's healing from the beginning? To stand 10 for she came to you with the clips to wipe away the tears, and she wanted to say for the memory to remember that he lips, and maybe they cannot last forever, but use that for some of the episode that you can find sweet enough to cherish. It was a Neptune, the storm, for the dream, and I cannot find a reason to understand. For maybe the dysphoria, for maybe the mind and I ain't untouched, maybe the belly for the dreams, and maybe it's too much avail for the home, for the emptiness, and the emptiness is preferable enough for the favorite song to be sung at the beach. There's a reason for letting go for the obvious life sign, deliberately to sink it into the disarray for the black holes, and you can find the merry go for the sunlight, and dip into the bottom for the baby depression. Tonight I can find out for the translation of storms and weather you be saying. Whether or not you can find the storms or weather. There's a beauty just like you for the thunder. Now whenever I had to spell it to me, there'd be another galaxy I actually didn't want about it to tell you. It's something that should have been known enough for the maybe that I can find that for the unpaved your covers and the really cloud clustered enough for the whisper when we can find it believing in the heaven in our heads and not to be lying in bed. I tell the truth.
Kind of tall when he plays. She wishes she felt differently. Her mind is kind of messy. Maybe she's a bit broken. She talks too much sometimes, and she writes sad songs at night. She really likes him, even though he doesn't say how much she really likes him, really likes him, really likes him, really likes him. She really likes him, but he doesn't say how much she really likes He grew up in the dark, listened until it hides, scared of being alone. Maybe he's a bit broken. He's kind of tall, and he plays guitar. She really likes him, even though he doesn't say how much she really likes him, really likes him. He caught her in a hazy state. She wishes she felt differently. Her mind is kind of messy. Maybe she's a bit broken. She talks too much sometimes, and she writes sad songs at night. She really likes him, even though he doesn't say how much she really likes him, really likes him, really likes him, really likes him.